Hi everybody, it's Julie Ebersol for ellenhutson.com. Welcome to Hello Monday. Today I'm going to be making some glimmer paste frosting for my cupcakes using this really sweet set. It's from the United We Flourish series. It's called Sweet Sprinkles and it was designed by Concord and Ninth exclusively for ellenhutson.com. And I am going to take some Canson XL watercolor paper. This is a quarter sheet. I've cut it down to, and I've got it situated here on a nonstick craft sheet. And I'm just taking clean water and brushing that clean water all over the surface of my watercolor paper. And then I'm going to start dipping into my colors. And I started with 3 colors. This one's kind of a citron yellow. And then I've got this kind of scarlet or orangey based red that I'm dropping in. And there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. Okay, so there's no expected outcome. I'm just playing, and I'm going to spritz it with some water and kind of move the color around a little bit more. And I'm also going to take my paper towel and daub up or sop up some of the excess water and excess paint color. This is going to end up being softer than what you see here. It's kind of more intense when it's wet, and then as it dries, it will soften up a bit. But sometimes I help that along by dabbing up the color with the paper towel. Now I'm cleaning off my brush in between each color with some water you can't see off screen. I've got a jar of clean water there and some paper towel that I can brush my paintbrush against so I can get one color out of it before I dip into the other watercolor pan. And this will help avoid any cross-contamination of my watercolor pans. And I'm working with the Kudetake Gansai Tambi watercolors. I love these colors. There are a lot of different ways you could do this. I just reached for the Tambi colors and I'm just going to use this. So and as you can see, I'm kind of like messing around here. And, well, all right, let's add a little bit more color over here in the corner. So I'm going to add a little bit more water there, add some color, drop that in. Is it getting too intense? Yeah, a little bit. So blot some of that away. And I just love how random that looks. And I also like to load the paintbrush up with water and just spatter it over the top and see what happens. And it creates these really cool water spots. And then I'm also going to grab some paint and load that up onto the brush and spatter that all around. And again, before I switch colors, when I'm doing my spatters, I will clean off the paintbrush and before I switch to another color. And I do get kind of flicker happy here because when I like it and how it's looking, it's like, ooh, do more. And then I reach a point where it's like, okay, you're going to have to stop because you're losing all your white space. I love white space, and I always find that for me, my projects turn out better when I have some white space here and there to counteract large concentrations of color. So I'm going to get splatter happy here, and then I'm actually going to throw this into a paper plate and grab my heat gun and speed dry it. And the reason for that is I don't have time to mess around here. I don't want to wait for it to air dry. I'm always impatient when I'm working on a project and I want to move on to the next step. So I'm going to speed heat set that very quickly. And once it's all thoroughly dry, I'm going to grab some black distress paint. Now this is paint. You could also use black acrylic paint, whatever you got handy. And I'm going to dab this against an acrylic block. I'm just shaking it there to make sure it's all nicely mixed. And like I said, you could use a black acrylic paint. I like it because it's thicker and it has much more opacity than if you used black ink. And now I'm going to take my paintbrush, which I cleaned and I dried it off a little bit so it's not so wet. It's not loaded with water. It's a little bit drier. And I'm just flicking. And I love this method of adding the black paint spatters because it gives me a lot of control. I can just hold that acrylic block over wherever I want it and spatter directly in that area or on that spot. And it gives me a really nice fine spatter. It just looks like little speckles on the paper surface. And I love that. So once I'm done, and the key with that is you got to stop at some point so you're not obliterating, you just want to add some texture. When it's dry, I'm going to sandwich it into some typing paper and send it about 3 times through my Gemini Junior, and that is going to nicely iron it flat for me. So I don't have to go heat up the iron or anything to flatten that out, or set it between a book and let it wait overnight to flatten out completely. So now I'm going to work on the bottoms of my cupcakes, little cupcake liners, and I've got that image and I'm stamping with Versamark ink onto some craft cardstock. That's the Nina Desert Storm. And I like that because it gives a really cool watermark effect, because you can use the Versamark ink on any color cardstock and it will just deepen the intensity of the paper color. So now I've taken the coordinating dies and I've cut out from my watercolor panel the frosting parts, and I've got the little cupcake liners all die cut. And I put some foam mounting tape on the back of each of these, and I'm going to double up on the cupcake that's going to go in the center there because I want it to have a little bit of extra dimension. I've already got a base card here that I made from some Nina Desert Storm, and it's 80-pound weight, and I stamped a greeting from that same stamp set right there on the front with some VersaFine Claire Nocturne, which is nice rich black ink. I'm going to futz around a little bit with my cupcakes because I do not want them perfectly straight in a row. I like it when things are a little bit cattywampus. Now this one's overhanging the bottom edge of the card, so I'm just going to flip it over and very carefully trim it off, and Bob's your uncle. It's all done. Everything's flush, and I'll be able to slide that into an envelope without any trouble. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount the frosting here above the little cupcake bottoms. And again, I do not want them perfectly aligned. I like the playfulness of having them just a little off kilter. And once I have those on there, I was like, what do I want to do to embellish these? I actually had to think about this for a while. Which luckily you didn't see me doing on camera. And I'm going to take some Nouveau shimmer paste and these awesome teeny tiny clear confetti stars by High Supply. And I'm going to spread that Nouveau shimmer paste onto my frosting here with a palette knife. And I like the palette knife because it has an angle there that allows you to get nice and flat to your project surface without your hand getting in the way. And you just load up that shimmer paste there on the back of the palette knife and go ahead and spread it on like you're frosting a real cupcake. And then I'm going to take these little sprinkles, and just like a real cupcake, I'm going to sprinkle those down into the wet shimmer paste, and then go ahead and allow the excess to kind of fall off. And then because they were sitting on the top and this stuff was starting to set up faster than I anticipated, I decided to take my palette knife and kind of mash those stars down into it, kind of embed it down into the shimmer paste. And these little tiny stars are just the cutest little things, and it's fun to see how that looks because it gives a real dimensional effect to the frosting on the top. And you do want to clean off your palette knife right away. I had a wet wipe handy, and if you need to, head over to the sink and or have a thing of water that you can plunk it into and then go clean it off later, because once that stuff dries, it's going to be super, super difficult to get it off your palette knife. You'll never be able to get it completely off. So always clean up your tools really nicely. And here you can see at the end, I didn't realize my camera was off, but I added some twine around each of the cupcakes, and you could add an additional panel on the inside to conceal the twine in those holes if it bothers you. But I thought this finished off the card very nicely. And here you can see the fun effect of that Glimmer paste frosting with the little stars in there. So cute. We have more still shots over at the blog at ellenhutson.com, and we have all the supplies listed below in the video description. If you enjoyed today's video, please give us a thumbs up, and you can see more of our papercraft videos by clicking on the photos below and by subscribing to the ellenhutson.com channel here on YouTube. Thanks for watching.